Hey guys, how you doing? There's a new setup for me in the quasi studio. I got a report for you guys on Donald Trump's speech. But before I go to Donald Trump's speech, I want to let you guys know the same things that I always do. In this new setup, I think I could still see your comments. I hope I can still see your comments. And if I do, I'll shout out your names as usual. So you hit the join button below to become a member of the Young Turks on YouTube. Watching anywhere else, tyt.com/join as usual. Sponsored by twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. It's progressive. It's actually, everybody's saying it's super delicious. So that's great to hear. It's organic, it's fair trade, and it gives to progressive causes if you get 2 bags or more. Okay. Trump had a crazy speech. I want to tell you all about it. So first thing is, he comes out there and he starts talking about how he's won. Of course, right? Then he's going to talk about the polling, and then there's going to be 1,000 different parts of it that are wrong. But I'm kind of amused by the rest of it, whether it was his theory on the polling or the media reaction to it. But let me give you the heart of it first, actually. He said, if you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. If you count the votes that came in late, we're looking at them very strongly, but a lot of votes came in late. So let's clarify a couple of things. Right now, there is no one that has been able to explain the distinction between legal and illegal votes that Trump is claiming. We know what an illegal vote is. If someone commits voter fraud, it's incredibly rare, but it's actually fairly easy to catch. And so it's happened, according to even Donald Trump's commission on it, which he did after the last election. I think it was 0.00000. I lost track of those, but I think 6 at that point. So it almost never happens. But there was some case of ballot harvesting, for example, in North Carolina in the 2018 election. Guess who did it? You're going to be shocked. Republicans, of course. And it was really easy to catch. And then they had to actually redo that election. So that was actually a bit of an extraordinary case. In that case, it was actually a staffer who did the harvesting illegally, not an individual voter. And when individual voters do it, think about how hard it would be to get these, like, for example, Wisconsin was the closest race so far, decided by 0.6%, 0.6%. Okay. How many votes is that? It's over 20,000 votes. So even in those closest of races, you'd have to go all across Wisconsin and somehow get 20,000 people to vote fraudulently. Okay, so it's not a real thing. Okay. But that's fine. In the rare cases that it happens, there is evidence of it. So Donald Trump, if you're going to make this outlandish claim that there's all of these illegal votes, and if it's talking about stealing elections, so far the only, like I said, or I'll put it this way, the state that was decided that was the closest was Wisconsin, and so he'd have to have evidence of over 20,000 illegal votes, as he put them. They've gone to court in all these different places already, Georgia, Pennsylvania, all these different states. Have they shown any illegal votes? No, they've been thrown out of court in every single instance. The only case that was like slightly interesting was in Pennsylvania, where they demanded to have more meaningful access to the vote counting. They already have access. They wanted binoculars. I mean, it's absurd. And then they're like, okay, fine. We want more verifiers in the room. And that's part of what's causing the delay in Pennsylvania. And then they were like, okay, fine. Get more verifiers in the room. It doesn't matter, right? So, but even in that case, in none of them, and by the way, in some of these cases, they were in massively conservative courts. And they're like, nope, you have brought literally zero evidence. This is a court of law. This is not cable news. Where's your evidence? Oh, you have none, zero. No, get out of court. Get out of here, right? And that's why they're all being settled super quick, because they're not even presenting any evidence. So it's an outlandish claim. I guess at this point, I expected it so much that I think it's obvious. But so that's why I'm kind of amused at the cable news reaction. They seem genuinely shocked. Like, oh, how could Donald Trump have claimed that there are illegal votes and that the Democrats are trying to steal the election? Of course! course he claimed that. That's what he always claims. That's what he's been claiming for. He's been telling you for weeks now that that's what he's going to do. I guess they didn't believe him. I guess they thought, no, he's just being Donald Trump. It's a joke. He's kidding about injecting bleach. He's kidding about how he's going to try to steal the election, and he's going to claim that the Democrats are doing fraud with no evidence, and then try to do basically a coup to stay in power. He's not kidding. He's never been kidding. Of course he was going to do this. Apparently, even Rick Santorum on CNN was like, yeah, that a bit outrageous. But the rest of the anchors, their hairs are on fire. Maybe my hair started on fire, so that's why it's not different to me. So anyway, bottom line is, of course, he doesn't have any instances of illegal voting. He didn't present that at his press conference. And then I'm always amused when he says things like, the ones that came in late, we're looking at them very strongly. I never know what it means to look at something very strongly. Here, let's try it together, okay? You guys do it at home too, okay? I'm going to look at you very strongly, and you look at me very strongly, and let's see how it turns out. I don't know if that was blue steel that was just like squinting really hard, but I was trying to look at you super strong. Oh, maybe I can do it this way. I could look at you too strong. Oh, I got a sponsor plug-in. TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Guys, the election could be called soon. And when it does, it'll be a bigger moment, right? And I'll bring that to you. I'm going to give you some of the election count actually in a little bit. Georgia is this close. You know what I'm doing, Georgia? I'm looking at it very strongly. And I hope you guys at home are looking at me very strongly. By the way, as it turns out in the new setup, I cannot see your names. But nonetheless, hit the join button below if you're watching live on YouTube. And I'll try to fix it so I can see your names next time. And then in terms of the votes coming in late, there's two different things, right? Votes that are postmarked by November 3rd, meaning there's definitive evidence that they voted by election day, could come in on November 4th or 5th. That's very normal. Looking at them very strongly doesn't make any sense and won't make any difference, okay? In terms of votes that come in after November 3rd or postmarked after November 3rd, well, obviously they don't count. They're after the election. No one has ever said they should count, and no one has ever counted them. So, again, a totally meaningless distinction. Doesn't mean anything at all. And then he started talking about the polls, and he said they knowingly did the polls wrong. Well, that's another outrageous claim. So were the polls wrong? Absolutely, right? He said they predicted a blue wave, but no such thing happened. That's true too. And then he said there was a red wave. That is not true. You're about to lose. Okay. Again, the cable news guys I don't know if they missed the last 5 years. So that's why I'm kind of amused by it, whereas they're shocked by he said that he lied on purpose in the polling. Of course he did. He's a pathological liar. He says stuff like that all the time. He can't leave well enough alone. He's right that the polls were terribly off. He's right that there was no blue wave. He started talking about how, the Democrats didn't pick up any seats in the House. That's true. But he can't leave well enough alone. So he then went on to have a conspiracy about how the media polling was part of election interference, the real election interference. And they're really what they're calling suppression polls. Nobody's calling them that other than the right wing. No, there was not some cabal led by George Soros and Dr. Fauci to do suppression polls. And that theory never made any sense. I remember in the 2016 election, everybody kept saying, oh, Hillary's definitely going to win. I'm like, that's voter suppression for Hillary. A lot of people aren't going to show up because they think the election is already over. And in that case, that cost her the election. Well, and that this time around, the Democrats did not make that mistake. If anybody made that mistake, it was me. Okay, I believed the polls, and I thought the election was way over, and it turns out it's way closer, and the polls were wrong. But if anything, that suppresses the Biden vote. So none of it makes any sense, which is classic Donald Trump. So last thing is, I wanted to give you the latest numbers because this is obviously so important. In Georgia, Donald Trump's lead is down to 1,902. Not much, okay? 98% reporting they're still coming in from Atlanta. So any reasonable reading of that is that he's almost certainly going to lose Georgia. And then good night, Irene, and we're done with this thing. Almost. Okay. So, and then his North Carolina is not moving at all, and he's likely to win it. So I'm going to basically stop talking about North Carolina. Pennsylvania, Trump's lead is down to 0.6. Now it's down to 42,000 votes, which is very, very little. And there's still 6% left, and they're all coming in big numbers in favor of Biden because they're coming from Democratic areas. Whereas in Arizona, they're coming in from Republican areas, and Trump is gaining votes there. 10% left in Arizona, still plenty of time for Trump to catch up. And Biden's lead there is down to 1.5%. But since Arizona is a smaller state than Pennsylvania, the number of votes that Biden is up by there is just similar to the ones that Trump is up in Pennsylvania. He's up by about 46,000 votes, Biden is. And then finally in Nevada, 89% reporting, and Biden's lead has gone up to 0.9%. So Nevada looks good. But Nevada's got both Republican and Democratic areas that might come in. So it looks good for Biden because of Pennsylvania mainly, but also Georgia. If he wins both those, it's over. And it's actually a pretty good electoral college count. And then he's got Nevada. And then he could hold on to Arizona and go over 300 electoral college votes. So that's where we stand now. If any of these get tipped over and they wind up being called, obviously I'll jump right back on here and let you guys know. All right, Young Turks.